What's up, guys? LQ here with the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. It's time for some end of year list. So first, I'm going to do my top 10 movies of the year. Now, I set a record this year. I watched 219 2025 releases this year. That was up from 198 2024 releases that I watched in 2024. So 219 releases in 2025. Now, when I say new releases, I mean movies I saw in theaters, movies that I saw on streaming services, movies that I saw that were kind of straight to video, straight to streaming. I do include stand-up comedies in my 219 movies that I watched. And I also count things like 1 hour streaming specials. If it's feature length or close to feature length, I tend to count it. So the vast majority of these were released in theaters, but some of the movies that I count in this 219 are either stand-up specials or movies that were streaming specials. But my top 10 movies, let's see, all 10 of them were released in theaters. All right, so starting with number 10. Number 10 is Weapons. Weapons is a movie that it really wasn't on my radar. I didn't really like Barbarian. So Weapons was one of those that I saw the teaser. The teaser was interesting to me. And it wasn't interesting enough for me to get like super excited about it though, because I didn't like Barbarians. And that teaser, that trailer was interesting to me. So I waited on this one. I didn't go see it opening weekend. I think it was like weekend 3 or 4 before I finally said, all right, I'm hearing tons of good things about it. I'm going to go check this out. And I'm so glad that I did, because this movie was a roller coaster ride. It was creative. It was original. It was scary. It did everything you want a movie to do. And what I liked about it was, usually I prefer my narratives to be straight. I prefer them to be chronological order, show it to me as it happens. Very few people can really pull off the jumping around in the story. Tarantino is one that can. But for the most part, I don't like it when they jump around in a story. I just tell me the story in chronological order. Weapons did not tell it in chronological order, and I love the way they told it from certain character perspectives. And each time they switched characters, it gave you more information about the story. It moved the narrative forward, and that's what I want to see. When they don't tell a story in chronological order, they need to, every time that they tell a section, they need to move the narrative forward, and Weapons did that really well. Great antagonist, a bunch of great protagonists. Weapons was wonderful. All right, number 9. Number 9 is one that a lot of people might laugh at, but I had a wonderful time seeing this in the theaters, and I've watched it a couple times since I've purchased it on VOD. It doesn't have the same hit as it did when it was in theaters, but I still enjoy it very much, and that's Primitive War. Primitive War, I took my son to see it on a special screening. We had to drive about an hour to watch it because none of our real local theaters ever showed it. So we drove about an hour to watch it, and it was a packed theater full of people who loved dinosaurs, loved dinosaur carnage, and there was honestly some people who were there to kind of chuckle at the movie, and that's fine, that's fair. But I really liked it. It was a fun amusement park ride. You got these soldiers in Vietnam going out to rescue another group of soldiers that went missing. They come across dinosaurs in Vietnam. We're talking raptors, we're talking T-Rex, we're talking every kind of dinosaur you can think of, pterodactyls, and the carnage is real. There's lots of carnage candy, lots of gore, lots of action, machine guns versus raptors. You don't know who's going to live, you don't know who's going to die. This was a fun movie. This was the best dinosaur movie this year. It was not Jurassic World Rebirth. This was United States military versus dinosaurs, and I was there for it. Primitive War is number 9. Number 8 is Wicked for Good. Um, I was a big fan of the first one, and I never saw the show, never read the book. The first movie was my first exposure to this world, and I loved the first movie. The second one I didn't like quite as much as the first one, but I thought it was still very strong. Very strong acting by Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jeff Goldblum. All of them bring their A game. Great special effects, great music. Um, some of the problems I had with this one were more along the lines of that's not really lining up with the Wizard of Oz, and that's just my own attachment to the Wizard of Oz. When something in Wicked doesn't line up perfectly, then it throws me off. And the second part is where the Wizard of Oz was actually taking place. So there was several areas where I was like, that doesn't line up perfectly. Now I know that this is kind of a Elseworlds version of Wicked or the Wizard of Oz, and it doesn't have to line up perfectly, but the times that it didn't, it kind of bothered me. That being said, great music, great acting, great special effects. You were immersed into this world. So much of it was practical, so much of it was sets, and I thought it was wonderful. John Chu knocked this out of the park. All right, number 7. Number 7 for me is Christy. I thought Christy was phenomenal, and I'm not a fan of boxing. I like the Rocky movies, but I'm not a fan of boxing. I'm not a fan of women's boxing. But this movie told a great story about an athlete, somebody who was a trailblazer in her sport, somebody who was at the top of her sport. But more than that, it tells a story about a person who is in an abusive relationship where the abuser has certain power dynamics over her, being her manager, her trainer, somebody who has authority over her and is exerting that authority to abuse her, and her overcoming that and getting out of that relationship. This was just a great movie about someone reclaiming her authority over herself. And this, I often point to Wonder Woman as the example of feminism done right. This is a movie that doesn't have to tear down men to empower the women. There are good people in Christie's life who happen to be male. Given the time period, though, some of them didn't know how to help her. Some of them might have looked to the other way when maybe they should have, but that doesn't mean that they weren't good people. It was a time period that they were set in where they didn't know how to react to this. This was a great movie, and it was a movie about a woman reclaiming her authority, and I loved it. All right, number 6 is Avatar Fire and Ash. I'm sorry, guys, I'm a big fan of the Avatar movies. I like this better than Way of Water. It's almost as good as the first one for me. But what James Cameron does so well is he immerses you into his worlds. The special effects are flawless. The sound design is flawless. The acting, motion capture, it all just completely immerses you in this world, that it doesn't matter that the story that James Cameron is telling is a tried and true story that's been told 100 different times in 100 different movies. This one feels different because it is different, because it is set in this world of Pandora, this world that comes to life through the magic of special effects. And just because it's a familiar story doesn't mean it can't be told again and again, because they are familiar themes that still resonate with us no matter how many times these stories get told. Avatar Fire and Ash is number 6. Number 5 is Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery. This was my favorite Knives Out movie. I know that a lot of people put it at number 3. I've seen some people put it at their number 1 or number 2, but for me, this was the best one. It had the most interesting mystery. I think that Daniel Craig was at the top of his game in this movie. The lead guy, I think he was played by Josh O'Connor. Is that right? He was wonderful. And what I like about this movie is so often when Hollywood makes movies about Christianity or Catholicism or religion in general, it wants to debase it. It wants to make that religion seem like a joke or seem unimportant or seem dated. But it didn't do that. In fact, there were moments of this movie that, even though Daniel Craig's character is an atheist, there were moments of this movie where he even places emphasis and importance on the positive things that religion teaches, that Christianity teaches. And at no point in this movie did I feel offended as a Christian. At no point in this movie did I feel like they were making fun of Christianity. I really felt like this was a story about a priest and an atheist trying to solve a murder, and at no point were they trying to tear religion down. Even though there were religious people in this movie who were bad people, and that's just like real life. There are religious people, there are Christians who are bad people, people who claim to be Christian who are not good people, who use their authority in the church to do bad things. Those people exist. That doesn't mean that Christianity is bad. It just means that people are bad. Wake Up Dead Man is number 5. Number 4 is the Thunderbolts, guys. I thought Thunderbolts was great. I did. I thought it was by far the strongest Marvel movie this year. Way better than Fantastic Four. And Fantastic Four was way better than Captain America. I just thought Thunderbolts was a lot of fun. Told a great story about depression and how we need other people in our lives to overcome that, and how having a support system around you is very important. The action was great. Sentry was cool. I love the new team. I love Bucky. Love Red Guardian. Love Yelena. I thought that this whole... I love U.S. Agent. I can't wait to see U.S. Agent in an Avengers movie. So I thought that this was a very fun movie, very well told, telling a good story that sets the future of the MCU up for success. So when this first came out, my review was the MCU's back. This felt like classic MCU. All right, number 3. Number 3 is Sinners. Guys, I was surprised how much I liked this movie. I thought that it told a great story about set in the time period, about African-American musicians, and as the story progressed, it became a vampire movie. It became From Dusk Till Dawn, only I liked it more than Dusk Till Dawn. This was just a fun roller coaster ride that was very well acted by Michael B. Jordan, very well directed by Ryan Coogler, and I just love seeing Ryan Coogler explore these different genres, and him stepping into the vampire genre. It was great. I love Sinners, and I've watched it several times since I saw it in theaters. Number two for me is Superman. I loved Superman. It's not my favorite Superman movie. I'm going to make a video about that here in the near future, but I still loved it. I loved what James Gunn's doing with this world. He's really bringing alive the kind of the Justice League International era of DC Comics. You know, the 80s, 90s, the JLI era. And that's the era I grew up with. So, and I suspect it's the era James Gunn grew up with. And even having characters like Guy Gardner and Metamorpho. I mean, these are characters that were very prominent in the Justice League International era. And bringing in Brainiac in the next movie, again, that just emphasizes, yeah, this is probably very much inspired by the JLI era. Loved it. I thought David Cornsett was great as Superman. Thought Nicholas Hoult was great as Lex Luthor. You know, there's maybe some instances where I would have liked to have seen it be a little less campy and a little more Man of Steel. But I'm still here for what James Gunn is selling. I love Superman. I saw it opening night with my son. Actually, we saw it a few days before it came out. We bought the Amazon deal that I think we saw it 3 days early. Packed house. I got the really cool Superman popcorn bucket. It was just it was a sold out theater where everybody was loving it. People were cheering, people were clapping, people were laughing, and it was a great movie going experience. And I've since purchased it on VOD, and I've watched it many, many times, and it was my second favorite movie of the year. So that's Superman. But my favorite movie of the year was one that at the end of 2024, this movie wasn't even on my top 10 most anticipated. And it ended up being my number 1 favorite movie of the year, and that's F1. F1 was great. From the moment I first started watching it, I was locked into it. And again, it's like Weapons. It was a movie that I wasn't super excited about, but I went and saw it because of the hype. and I was hearing really good things about it, and I was just locked in. A story about an aging athlete. You can have the debate on whether race car drivers are athletes or not all day long, and whatever. But a story about an athlete who is near the end of his career, who has one more race in him. That speaks to me. As a former athlete myself, that speaks to me. And Brad Pitt did a great job. I love the way this movie was filmed. Very realistic. I believe that a lot of the movie was filmed using real race cars. Very little CGI, and you felt that in the movie. You felt kind of that your seat shake during some of the racing scenes, and um, you connected with Brad Pitt, but you also connected with the younger driver that he was mentoring. This was a great movie, and I've watched it several times since, and this is my favorite movie of the year. So those are my top 10 movies of the year. What are your top 10, or what is your favorite movie, or what on my list do you think was a hot take? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there commenting, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and until next time, we'll see you guys later.